So one of the things that I think a lot of educators who are transitioning into their business or growing their business, they struggle with or they have to unlearn is pricing and
Yep.
their relationship with money. And so there's something that I believe, particularly for educators, happens in their business is their first shock sale.
Yeah.
Where it is the moment you get a client and what they're willing to pay you shocks you.
Yes.
And like that number,
Yeah.
the first time you have that shock sale where it's like, oh my God, someone is willing to pay me this, it completely changes your perspective of how much money you can make,
Yes.
how fast money can move. It changes your perception of how you price yourself. So I'm curious to hear about your first shock sale. Tell us about that.
It was 2018. So one of the important things to know is that I had my first keynote speech, if you will, and I say that with the air quotes intentionally, in 2012. But this was when I was still in the classroom, and it was for the National Junior Honor Society at the school. And because I was teacher of the year, they had asked me to do that. And so I'm like, cool. And of course it was unpaid, but I still put that on my resume. And it was a learning experience. I had a lot of fun. And that's when I started to kind of branch out, and I was getting a couple of things here and there. I was still in school, so I didn't graduate until 2014. I finished my PhD. And so then after that, I started going even more, a couple times a year, and it ramped up, snowballed. So 2018, I'm out here now. I'm still teaching at the university level, but I'm out presenting at more conferences, securing more contracts. And so I got referred to from a former colleague for an event that was coming up for a school district. And so I set up a meeting and had a conversation. They told me what the goals were for this. It was a small conference. And so they asked me what my price was. And I had been doing some reading, and I'm like, all right. And I threw it back at them. I was like, well, I would love to share that information with you, and I just need a couple more details. And then I kind of came back around with it. So, do you have a range? Do you have a budget? I threw that back at them. I'm studying. And And so, and then what was crazy was they threw it back at me.
Okay.
And so I saw what it was, and I said, all right, let me draft up a couple of things and let me give you a couple of options. That's my go-to. I'll give you a couple of options. And so what they told me, though, the good piece of information was that I got was one of the speakers they were considering. And so that told me everything that I needed to know. I went and looked up that person. I can't remember who it is, but he was one of those people. When I Googled him, I had never heard of him before, but I saw he was a part of this speaking network. And so I called the speaking network. There was like a number there. I changed my voice. I'm like, hey, how you doing? This is information I need to know. So I changed my voice and kind of was like, I'm considering having this person for our event, and we'd love to get some information so that we can draw up. They were like, and I was like, do you have an estimated range for what it would cost for person X to do a speaking engagement? I was like, oh, he's around 30 grand. It's like, okay, thank you.
Come on, 30 grand?